Okay, in this video what we're going to do is we're going to talk about something that is fairly popular, but ironically I don't know that much about, and that is gaming on Linux. And the only reason why I don't know that much about it is because I'm not a hardcore gamer. I do play some games. I play like Diablo III, I've got Steam installed, I got a couple games in there. But at the same time, I am not a master at getting any of this installed. So in this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk through my setup. I'm going to walk through how I personally game. And it may or it may not work for you. For me, every game I have installed works, but your mileage may vary. And if you run across any issues, unfortunately, I'm probably not the best person to ask on how to fix it. But let me go ahead and show you how I personally game. This might be a little longer video today, but I feel that it's on the important side. It's going to be done in two different sections. So the first section is actually going to get Wine, Lutris, and Steam installed. I use all three of these. Wine, Lutris, and Steam. We're going to get those installed on our little itty-bitty Dell micro form factor that it can't handle the games that I'm going to be demonstrating. So the installation part will be done on the Dell, and then I will come back later and we'll resume on my main computer, which is where I do the gaming at after everything is installed. So let's go ahead and get started here. I've got these websites here. I'll have those pinned in a comment in below this video, excuse me. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing we need to do, and we're doing this on Debian 13. Let's continue our Debian 13 playlist. So we're just going to copy and paste a bunch of this stuff. As you heard me say in an earlier video, you don't want to just copy and paste stuff off the internet, especially if it looks suspicious. So we need to understand what's going on here. This is just telling dpackage that we're going to add the architecture for i386, which will add 32-bit libraries is all we're doing here. So we're going to shift insert and hit enter. I can tell you that I won't intentionally mislead you on any of this stuff, but at the same time, trust but verify is the thing. So on this right here, we're just going to, this is going to make a directory and set its permissions to 755 on this keyrings directory if it does not already exist. If it already exists, it's no harm, no foul. Then we're going to use wget to pull this key in. Then we're going to use sudo gpg to install this key to make sure everything is nice and secure. All right. So then down here, it looks like we have some decisions to make. This actually works. This is for Debian and Ubuntu, if you can't tell. So what we're going to do here is we're going to scroll down and find our Trixie, which is what we're currently working on. And we're just going to copy. This is going to use wget again to download into this directory this sources file. And we will look at it in a second just to make sure nothing nefarious is going on. All right, so what we want to do here is if we clear the screen, we don't even need a sudo. We can nano etc apt sources .d. What's in there? We want the one that was just added, which is the WineHQ. And as we can tell, all it's doing is in the new Debian format, it's adding this particular repo for Trixie, and we're pulling in 64-bit and 32-bit. And here's our key that we're signing with. So everything looks good here. We'll go ahead and exit out of that. Okay, and then we need to do a sudo update. Sudo apt update. Oops, sorry about that noise. Okay, if we continue on down here, we have another decision to make. Which version of Wine are we going to install? If you are going to use like retro games and stuff that has already been out, that's not going to change that much, you might be able to get away with Wine Stable. You can do the development version or you can do the staging version. Essentially what I do is staging, which is between dev and stable. So Control L, Shift Insert. All right, so I'm going to scroll up and see what's happening here. So we're using app to install and install the recommended packages for WineHQ Staging. This here says that we can auto remove this here. This is from an earlier update. I just didn't clean up after myself last time I ran updates, which is fine. We're installing this package and then we're installing all of these dependencies all the way down. And these are suggested packages. These are not going to be installed. They're just suggested. And we're removing this AirScan tool. Unless you use a scanner on your computer, you don't need that tool anyway. So I'm going to hit yes. We're going to let this scroll through. Normally when scroll bars go across or stuff like this happen, I usually pause the video. But in this case, I think I'm going to leave it in so you can see absolutely everything that is happening. It's not taking that long anyway, so we'll let it go. If you're interested in seeing some gameplay, which I will probably start uploading a few videos of my recorded gameplay, make sure you click like and subscribe, ring that notification bell. That way you can catch when that happens. Go ahead and let this finish. Like I said, normally I would have paused the video by now so you don't have to see this, but even on this little bitty $500 machine, you can tell how fast that happened. Okay, so once we're done with that, we'll go ahead and go back over here to our instructions, and then the help section starts. Here, missing dependencies. If you run into problems, this is a good place to start. Here, there's also additional instructions for like KDE Neon, backports, which we're not using. If you run into key problems, that sort of thing. It's always good to read all the way through here, at least skim it all the way down to see if your particular distribution is going to end up having some issues or maybe additional steps and that sort of thing. We are done with this, however, though, so we're going to go ahead and close this step. And the next one is going to install drivers that are going to be needed for Wine. I want to pause here for just a second. I want you to note this paragraph right here. I don't know if we can zoom in on that a little bit or what. Yeah, there we go. All right. For NVIDIA, Mint is not supported, and these instructions may not work on Mint. Following them may leave your system broken. It's good to understand that. There used to be a note in here that says how to fix this is outside the scope of this video. However, if you take this note into consideration, you have a fix for it, at least the way it used to be. Last time I ran Linux Mint, I indeed followed these instructions, keeping this in mind, and it worked fine, even on Mint. We just didn't use the PPA. Well, we're using Debian here, so we cannot use the PPA anyway. Debian has no clue what a PPA is. So we're going to skip the PPA instructions, which is adding this PPA right here. And we have already enabled the 32-bit architecture, so we don't need to do that. So we also don't need to run an update because that's already been done. So if you're running NVIDIA, you'll want to do this part right here, keeping in mind that the latest version might not be 5.3.5. You might have to go and search and see what the latest driver is. I don't have an NVIDIA card, so I can't demonstrate that for you. I do apologize. We have an AMD Intel in both the Dell and in my main PC. But the same thing applies. This might not work. You don't have to use the PPA. So we're going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to scroll across, get past the part we've already done and the part we don't need, and we will copy this line and we'll take it back over and throw this in here. So all we're doing here is we're going to sudo apt install these packages here. Mesa, Vulkan, libvulkan, all of that pertains to graphics and graphics acceleration, hardware acceleration is all related to that. So we'll minimize that. We are not on Arch, Manjaro, or any of those, so we're going to skip all of those there. If we scroll down, we also talk about Tumbleweed. We talk about NixOS. We don't have any of that, so we're going to go ahead and say we are finished here. So the next step is to go ahead and install Lutris. Lutris is, it's kind of like Steam, but it's Linux based and not, you know, just game based. What you find on Lutris are installer scripts, not the games themselves. What we need to do is scroll down, find our Debian, and we are going to copy this line right here. What this is going to do is it echoes out a .sources file for us to follow. And we'll look at it, of course, when we're done. Control L clears the screen. Shift insert. Enter. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. Nano, etc, apt, sources.list.d, and they named it lutris.sources. And there it is, sure enough. There's our types, there's our repo, and the suite, and here's the key that we're signing with, etc. So we'll go ahead and close that out. Go back over to our screen here. So here's the key that gets signed with. We have to copy that too. We're using wget to pull this key in, and we're using sudo gpg to install that key. Shift insert, enter. So that is done. So now we need to do an update and install Lutris. Sudo apt update space $& sudo apt install Lutris. Okay, so let's talk about this for a second. Control L. We're going to run a sudo apt update, and then this $& means that we are only going to continue down the command stack if the previous command is successful. If the previous command throws an error, this $& will stop the command stack and it will not proceed. If we were to just replace that with like a semicolon, the semicolon doesn't care about failures. The semicolon will just run through the stack until it gets to the end. So let's look at what we're pulling in here. All right, so it looks like we're going to pull in Lutris. Looks like Fluid. This is for some sound. Looks like we're pulling in some Qt libraries, Python, Vulkan tools, stuff like that. So we're going to go ahead and let it install. And like before, I'm just going to let it run. Like before, you've seen that it was fairly quick. But I think it's important that we see this entire process, because gaming on Linux and installing games and installing these platforms is more of an advanced topic. It's not something that we really want to gloss over or skip over. All right, so we got that part done. We're done with this page. Now we get to install Steam. When you go to steampowered.com, the very first thing you'll do is click this green install button up here at the top. This here, if you notice this icon, it turned into the Steam logo. That means it's for Linux. It automatically detected that it's Linux. As I hover over this button, look down here in the lower left corner. If you can read that, it says that it's steam.deb. So it's pushing a Debian file to us. All right, so let's go ahead and we're going to close that. I've already downloaded it. If you haven't downloaded, click that download button, the blue button before. Okay, so we're not in here anymore. Let's go ahead and switch to downloads. And there's that Steam deb file there, and that'll be a sudo apt install. Now, what I'd like to do is I'll throw the install recommends on here anyway. Okay, and what that does is it's just going to be a more complete installation. It's going to pull in all of the recommended packages as well. We want to make sure we get all of this up working and without any kind of errors or hiccups on the first attempt. So that's what we're going to do here. / means I'm in my current directory. And then steam latest deb, let it run. So what it's going to do is it's actually going to install the Steam launcher and some more dependencies. Looks like Steam libraries and some other stuff like GL and things that it needs. So we're going to go ahead and hit enter and let that run. Okay, this down here, this has been going on for a little while. And basically what this does is normally when apt installs packages, it does so in a sandboxed environment. And when normally what it does is it does this out of the temp directory, and that's /tmp. What you want to do to avoid this error message is to put your installers in the temp directory. So that would have been temp /steam whatever. Okay, you move it to the temp and then run it, and this message won't show up. However, since we're doing it the lazy way, we're installing out of our own home directory, we can ignore this message. It was fine. It did its thing. Okay, so now that that's all installed, I'm going to go ahead and close this terminal. And the first thing we want to do is go into our start menu, go to games, and we're going to find Lutris, which is right here. We're going to open it up. And we need to let this run the first time, because if you look in the lower corner, it's already pulling in DXVK, it's pulling in icons, Voodoo, it's pulling in these additional packages that it needs in the back end, so it can be compatible with Linux, Steam, and Wine. Okay. You also have these sources here. You can link these accounts to your Steam account. You can link it to EA. You can link it to GOG, whatever you want. Okay. You can sign in up here in this corner to Lutris, and then after you do that, you can click plus, and you can search for games. Like I want to do Diablo, for example, and I hit that. There's my Diablo, and then I can go through and install. This requires BattleNet standard. Of course, we have to install BattleNet before we can install Diablo. And you can install games through Lutris as well. Like I said, the Lutris.net is a repository of installer scripts. They got almost 300,000 files on Lutris's website. I was talking while I was doing that, but that was pulling in a type of Proton called GE, or Glorious Egg Roll, which we'll use here again in a second. I'll show you that once we move over to my main computer. And then we click install, and it will go through and it will install. It needs to pull in its own dependencies like mono. It's enabling DXVK. We need to go ahead and let this run. And we can actually install BattleNet this way. It might error out. I don't know. Because like I said, this is not a gaming computer. So if it errors out, that's fine. I don't want this to launch when I launch my computer. It doesn't matter anyway. This isn't Windows. I'll click continue. And it's going to install BattleNet just like it would on your Windows computer. Now, even if you never use Lutris again, it's a good idea to go ahead and install it the way I'm installing here, because it pulls in those extra libraries, and it pulls in Glorious Egg Roll Proton. It pulls in additional files that will be used later on in Steam. Okay, while this is running, I want you to look right here. It says, do not attempt to log into BattleNet once BattleNet has finished installing and the login window appears. Simply close it and you'll install it next time you start the app. Fair enough, so we will do exactly that. We won't log in right now. We need to watch this window down here at the bottom, and if this is a little hard for people to see because of the font size, I do apologize, but I cannot change that font size right here. But once this is done, it'll say it's successful. We'll let it do that. Okay, installation is complete. We're going to go ahead and close, and for some weird reason, there's no close button on this. I have to just cancel it. But here's BattleNet. And I will be able to double click on that and open it up. I'm going to go ahead and pause right here and split the video. I'm going to move the recording from the Dell micro form factor here over to my main PC. So give me just a second and I will be right back with you. All right, so now that we're on this desktop here, I'm going to go ahead and open Battle.net. So we'll go ahead and click Start, go to Games. As you can tell, I already have some games installed here. Like I've got Last Epoch, Satisfactory. We're not always playing like the old, indie games that are 20 years old, but there are a couple older games in here. Warframe, that kind of thing. But what I'm going to do here is I'm opening Lutris. And this is where we're left off in the previous section. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to double click on this, and this is going to open up Battle.net itself. It's not going to open Diablo III or whatever. It's going to get me signed in. As soon as it loads the page. And while this is loading, gaming on Linux is not perfect. You have to be willing to do some manipulation. You have to be willing to do some homework. You have to be willing to do some additional configuration. But if that's all it takes to get you off of Windows or prevent you from having to deal with the corporate mentality of modern operating systems, then hey, I think it's a small price to pay. I didn't have to worry about that. I have not done any additional steps that I have not recorded in this video to get this game to play. All I did was sign in. So here are the games that I currently own. I have Diablo 3, Diablo 2, Diablo 4, Heroes of the Storm, StarCraft, and World of Warcraft, which I don't play any of these anymore, really. That's why I've only have these two pinned or bookmarked, if you will. I did do Diablo 4 for a little bit, but I found that I don't like it. I don't like it as well as I like Diablo 3 or Diablo 2. So if I go back over here to my home, I can go ahead and click on Diablo 3. And these are already downloaded and installed. If they were not, this wouldn't be a play button. It would be an install button. And once you get this open and running, you can go ahead and install it. I'm going to go ahead and click this here, and we're just going to let this start up. I don't know if my desktop audio is going to record or not, but we will see. Now this does take a little longer to launch in Linux than it would in, say, a Windows environment, but it's fair. This isn't its native environment. Windows is its native environment. So I can go in here, I can switch my characters around. I'm not going to do any gameplay or anything like that. I'm just showing you that it is here and it actually works. I can create characters, do whatever I need to do, just like I can on Windows. And everything is working just fine. All my game settings are here. Cancel. In my options, my video is set for 1080. Normally I play this on my 34-inch ultra wide, which is 2K or 1440. And it plays just fine. It plays just as well as it does in Windows. Volume, all that stuff. Actually, I will go ahead and start this so we can walk around our base. I'm not going to really do any gameplay. If you want to see gameplay, let me know, and I will record some games. I already have one that I've recorded. I will upload it and put it in its own little playlist. But as you can tell, it works just fine. It's not choppy. It's not pixelated. It's not choppy or anything like that. Down here, my lag is 64 milliseconds, which is about the same as it would be on Windows. I can do whatever I want to do and actually play the game. You don't have to worry so much about lag, at least in most games. If it installs and it plays well, then it plays well. Same thing for Steam. I can go up here, hit my Steam library. This will get me logged in. And it started on the other screen. Give me just a second and we will get this pulled over here. There we go. So if I go into my library, I have I have my games here. A lot of these are actually Windows games. Last Epoch, Satisfactory, Sims definitely is. Warframe. These are Windows games, and they play just fine. Satisfactory, I've got like 9 hours of gameplay in it. I just bought it a couple weeks ago. That kind of thing. One thing you need to do while you're in here in Steam is you need to go to Steam Settings, and then you want to go down to Compatibility. And over here, you want to make sure that you have whatever Proton version works best in your scenario. I have it set at experimental, but I can choose a lesser version if I need to. And as long as this is pointed at Proton, you should be good to go on your Steam games. Again, this works 100% on the games that I have installed here. That is not the same thing as saying as it works 100% on every game in the Steam library. This is something that you have to trial and error and figure out for yourself. And I would do that before committing to a full Windows exodus. If gaming is holding you back and you happen to be like me, where you're just a lighter or medium gamer and you only play like a handful of games, install and test those games. And if they all work, you no longer have a reason to stay on Windows as far as gaming is concerned, if that makes sense. Anyway, let me know if you want to see more gaming videos. I will certainly see we can record playthrough on what I have here. I'm not a gamer, so I'll probably look like an idiot when you watch me play, but I will still do that for you. Anyway, if you like these videos, want to see more, make sure you click that like button, subscribe, and ring that notification bell, and we will see you next time.